Welcome to the Mile High Flight Show, where a Jets fan and a Broncos fan get together to talk about the NFL and other sports. I'm your host, Ryan Marinholtz, alongside Enrique Cisneros. Let's get into this. There's a ton going on in the last week in the NFL with free agency, some trades going on, and I'm so excited to get into it. How about you, Enrique?
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, I think we started off a little bit last week talking about it, but yeah, this week we'll definitely get the full details, the full dive, especially with some of these bigger moves. I'm super excited for it.
For sure, for sure. So I say let's go ahead and start off doing a deep dive on the AFC West and some of the big moves that happened both this past week. Some things we touched on a little bit last week, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into this time. So we can start with the Chiefs and some of the moves that they've made. The biggest one, obviously, Tyreek Hill traded to the Miami Dolphins for a 2022 first round pick, second, and a fourth. And then in 2023, another fourth and a sixth. And then after he got to Miami, he received an extension for 4 years, $120 million with 72.2 guaranteed. And little note on that, the last year of that four is not guaranteed whatsoever. So it's closer to like a 375 with that 72.2 being guaranteed. So it's technically, as we'll get into with Devontae Adams, he wanted to be paid the most as a wide receiver, and it's just barely above Devontae Adams, but it looks way bigger than it actually is. And then to replace Tyreek Hill, more or less, they signed Juju Smith-Schuster on a 1-year, $10.75 million deal, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling for $330. So how are you feeling about those moves?
So obviously the big name one is the Tyreek Hill move. And as a Jets fan who was in the running apparently to get Tyreek Hill, I'm a little bittersweet about it. I think for Tyreek, it's a bad move, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But as far as for the Chiefs, I think it's a great move. Like, you're already a Super Bowl contender every single year, and you were able to not only get rid of Tyreek Hill and get a king's ransom for him. I mean, the Dolphins gave up so much stuff for Tyreek Hill. Like,
Yeah.
we got the 2022 first and second and fourth. Is that all 2022? The first, second, and the fourth?
Yep.
That's crazy. And then a fourth and a sixth. And then they had to pay him as well. The Dolphins had to pay him. So the Chiefs were going to end up having to pay him. And I think, like you said, the Devontae Adams thing kind of started all this. And the Chiefs said, yeah, we don't want to pay you all that. And it makes sense. They're trying to build for the future going forward. And I mean, they did that. They did that. Where a lot of these other contending teams are kind of taking this Rams approach to, fuck them picks, like get rid of them all. Let's load up now and try to get our run, which another AFC West team is doing.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have decided, like, hey, let's be smart about this. And then, yeah, they go and get Juju. I like Juju a little bit less than I like MVS, but I think that Juju has a higher ceiling. If I'm being honest with you, I think if
Yeah.
Juju comes back in the way that I've seen him play out in Pittsburgh, I think Juju could be an easy number one for this team. I think MVS is going to continue to be what MVS is, super solid, second to third option in that passing game. And I mean, obviously, when you go from Aaron Rodgers to Patrick Mahomes, you're living good regardless. Yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs really did their thing with their wide receivers. I think they were able to get a bunch of picks for the future, not have to pay Tyreek Hill, and they got two guys that can come in and pretty much do Tyreek Hill's job for less money, and they got more out of it. And they still have Travis Kelce. So, and in my opinion, Travis Kelce was kind of the 1A option for Patrick Mahomes, anyways.
Yeah.
And I think Tyreek Hill was that 1B. So, and I think we'll see that more in the offense as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of what you just said. And I do think when it first came out, there was a lot of, everybody else in the AFC West was celebrating, and they're like, yes, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. These moves do definitely soften that blow in terms of the void he's leaving on the field. Another little move they signed actually just this morning on Saturday was Ronald Jones on a 1-year deal. And it just points to the whole offense, obviously, with Tyreek Hill being gone now. They're going to have to shift around what their identity is. A lot of what they did was tied around Tyreek Hill and his deep shots and being so fast. But then in the
Exactly.
last couple of years, he's, shifted to having that, threat always be there. But defenses have started to play a lot more cover two with two safeties in the back and taken away those deep shots from him. So he's had to turn into a little bit more of a possession and yard after catch receiver. And it's been interesting to see his growth. So I think people are almost underrating Tyreek Hill in a sense when they're saying the Chiefs made it out like really good on this trade. But I do think that with the pickups of Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they can replace a couple of the things that he did. MVS has that speed, get over the top, and Juju, like you said, is going to be a good first receiver for him and make some possession catches and kind of fill in the role that Tyreek Hill was the last couple of years more. And then Ronald Jones, it gives you that 1-2 punch, like we talked about off the air, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire already being there, gives you a couple of different options in the backfield there. So it's an interesting move because some people will say, yes, the Chiefs got weaker. Some people will say, well, actually, it's not as bad because of what they've gotten here. And then also the amount of cap space just in general that Tyreek Hill was requesting. And you look at the fact that he's making now $24 to $25 million a year. That gives a lot of the Chiefs a lot more flexibility to fix that defense that doesn't look so great right now. You know what I mean? And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. It's definitely a fork in the road for the Chiefs, I would say. One of those moments where, like, when you look at the dynasty with Patrick Mahomes, this could be a moment where things go a little bit downhill, and Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes, so he's probably still going to be really good regardless. You know what I mean? Or it could be a point where they just continue on their path and you realize, oh, Tyreek Hill wasn't as big of a role in that as we thought. So it'll be interesting for sure.
And let me say this. The biggest thing that I think makes me feel that the Chiefs are the winner on this is MVS. If they didn't get MVS and we were just looking at this pretty much like Tyreek versus Juju, I think the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins had to get rid of all those picks, I still think the Dolphins, and because you never know how those draft picks are going to work out. You know what I mean? So you have Juju versus Tyreek, and obviously Tyreek is, he's top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, top 5 for sure. So if you're looking at it just from Juju versus Tyreek and they did not get MVS, I think it's a bad move for the Chiefs. But the fact that they somehow got MVS, and I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not hard to convince somebody to go play with Patrick Mahomes, especially when he just got done playing with Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
So that MVS thing, because he was one of my underrated guys that I was really looking at for the Jets themselves to sign, because I always liked what he did out in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers very much trusted him, and when you have back-to-back MVP so willing to trust you in clutch situations, I like that a lot. So absolutely. I think that's the one that put me over for and then Rojo, like you said, Rojo's nice too. It's going to give him a bit more of that road grader, and I think that's exactly. I think you touched on it perfectly. It's really going to see where the Chiefs are going to go and how they're going to build this offense. And I think, I think it's going to be fireworks.
For sure. That's where I'm at too. And so to move on to another team in the AFC West, let's go ahead and talk about the Raiders, unfortunately. The biggest move from them, obviously, Devontae Adams traded to the Raiders from the Green Bay Packers for a 2022 first and second round pick. And after that, he received a 5-year, $140 million deal that is actually going to be closer to, in terms of his guaranteed money and everything, 3 years and 67. And that puts him around 23 million a year. So the reason why that's important, we brought up those details with Tyreek Hill's contract earlier. A sticking point for Tyreek Hill when he when his agent received permission to seek a trade from the Chiefs was that he wanted money or more money than Davante Adams got. At first, when you look at that 5-year, $140 million deal, it looks like 28 million a year. But then when you actually look at the details of it and what he is most likely actually going to receive out of it, that's where you get that 23 million a year, and how Tyreek Hill just eked above him at 24 to 25 with that Dolphins deal. So an interesting situation there. You can clearly tell Tyreek Hill was very interested in just having his name above Davante Adams there. So, yeah, a couple more moves that the Raiders made. Yannick Ngakoue traded to the Colts for Rock Ya-Sin, a quarterback. I believe he's in his second or third year, a solid player, and a cornerback, definitely a position of need for the Raiders. So that was a big one. How do you feel about these Raiders moves?
Obviously the big one, Devontae. I think him pairing up with Derek Carr again, shout out to their college days together. If I'm being honest with you, I thought it made too much sense. Like when it was first talked about, I was like, I don't know, that makes too much sense to give the Raiders, this big number one wide receiver coming off, and like Devontae Adams. And I feel kind of bad because I have been like holding back on my praise for Devontae Adams for the last few years because I'm such a big DeAndre Hopkins guy. Devontae Adams might have been the best wide receiver in the NFL. And when you're able to acquire such a player, you got to do whatever you can. And
Yeah.
I think the contract's very fair. And I think that it did reset the wide receiver market. I think the contract's fair for the type of player Devontae is, the type of man Devontae is. Even more so because you're not only getting a great player on the field, you're getting a great man off the field. And I think Devontae Adams is a stand-up guy. I think he deserves the bag for sure. I think he deserves to go play in Las Vegas. Nice weather all the time. Because Green Bay is known for a few things, and they call that field the frozen tundra for a reason. So all in all, I like it a lot for Devontae. I think the thing that I would really like to see the Raiders do is take care of that defense a little bit more. I didn't like that they traded Ngakoue. I did not like. I'm still really high on Yannick, especially from his days down in Jacksonville. And I know he's been floating around the NFL a little bit, but I really thought, with some consistency and then adding Chandler Jones to that pass rush with Max Crosby,
Absolutely.
I thought that was really going to be a good move for the Raiders. That would give them that three-headed monster in their pass rush. And Yannick has a different sort of pass rush than the other two do. Chandler Jones is kind of in that Von Miller mode of, very fluid speed rusher. And Yannick has a lot of power. Max Crosby's kind of that in-betweener type of guy. So I really didn't like that, but I do think that Rock Ya-Sin is a baller. And corner is especially after because wasn't their first round pick that got arrested for the gun? What is it? What was his last name?
There's been so many that have been arrested. I can't remember which one it was. I believe Damon Arnett.
Yes, exactly. He was their first round pick that they had a corner. That he was a corner for them. So they had to get rid of him. So I do understand, and I just hope that going forward, especially as we get closer to the draft, that the Raiders they take a good look on that defensive side of the ball, because obviously I think corner is a big need for them. And I don't have the Raiders roster in front of me right now, but I don't think their safety, what is it, Jonathan Abraham? I don't think he's been on the field. Yeah, I don't think he's been on the field very much in his time there. So you might have to be looking at, some new safety guys. It all in all, I love the Devontae move, but the Ngakwe move has got me questioning a few things because I really thought that was going to be like, I think the best pass rush right now in the AFC West belongs to the LA Chargers.
Yeah.
But if they would have kept Ngakwe, I might have had to give it to the Raiders because that's the one thing the Chargers don't have is they don't have that third guy outside of Bosa and Mack, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
I
that
agree.
can still get after the quarterback.
I agree. I agree. And then you brought up the Chandler Jones move that was for 3 years, $51 million. That was also a good signing, and it does, like you said, when initially that move happened, you're like, oh wow, that line. But then with Ngakwe leaving, it doesn't look quite as good. But I'd still expect the Raiders to have a really solid pass rush as they did even without Chandler Jones and Max Crosby lighting it up last year. So it'll be interesting to see there. And then an interesting thing about the Devonte Adams deal in comparison to Tyreek Hill as well is just what was given up. You look at Devonte Adams, which we would both agree is right now at least the first or the best wide receiver in the league, and he was given up for a first and a second round pick, which when we saw that initially before the Tyreek Hill move happened, there was obviously a debate about the value of that trade. And I think that everybody would kind of agree that maybe you could get a little bit more for Devonte Adams on paper, but because of the extension he was going to have to receive, the what they was given up was less than what you would maybe think. However, in Tyreek Hill's case, I mean, you're looking at 5 different picks and compared to 2, and Tyreek Hills includes a first and second, just like the Devonte Adams deal as well. It's such a different amount of compensation. I mean, the Miami Dolphins certainly got to be happy that they have Tyreek Hill, but when you look at those 2 deals next to each other, and then the fact you're paying Hill more than Devonte Adams, yeesh.
Yeah, no, and that's such an awesome point that you brought up. It really is. And let me just say this, because I know it came down between the Dolphins and the Jets in regards to who was gonna trade for Tyreek. The Jets didn't offer a first round pick.
Yeah, I
We
saw
didn't
that. I
we,
saw that.
we didn't offer a first round pick. I think we offered them our 2 seconds and our third.
Mm-hmm.
So and the Chiefs accepted that. To my knowledge, the Chiefs accepted that. It came down to the team that Tyreek Hill decided he
Right.
wanted to play for, and obviously he chose the Dolphins. But that goes to show right now, exactly to your point, like at the end of the year, when you look at the 2 guys and you look at the 2 teams, are you thinking that Tyreek Hill is going to have a bigger impact than Devonte Adams is? I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think that's
Yeah.
going to be the case. I just don't.
I agree with you. And especially, we can talk about it all day. I'm a fan of Tua. I do like him, but I acknowledge that he is not the best deep ball thrower and doesn't have the large arm in the NFL. And that may hold Tyreek Hill back. You know what I mean? And so we look at his production with Pat Mahomes. He's downgrading at quarterback. There's no debate about that, to what extent maybe, but it's
Right.
definitely some sort of a downgrade. And yes, Devonte Adams is downgrading too, but Derek Carr is certainly a much more established and proven quarterback in this league than Tua is, and has obviously, because you have the chemistry with him and Devonte Adams, that's going to work. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
even
they've
more of a
already shown
value.
it.
Yeah, and they have that pre-built relationship that you just plug them in, and that is probably going to be a very good move for them. But it definitely interesting to see how it plays out in Miami, and whether Tyreek Hill lives up to the cost. And so from there, we can move on to just some of the bigger free agency moves. Being a Denver Broncos fan, huge one for me. Von Miller going to the Buffalo Bills for a 6-year, $120 million contract. Good Lord. I'm glad to see my boy get a bag. I was a little sad to initially, not see him come back to the Broncos after winning a Super Bowl with the Rams. I thought that would have been a cool storyline, but it
And
sounded like
he
it was
teased
down
it
to,
too.
yeah, it sounded like
Vaughn
it
was
was down
teasing
to
it.
him and the Rams, and he ended up going to the Bills. That definitely makes the Bills even scarier as an already scary contender.
The thing that's very strange is like the Bills came out of nowhere for Vaughn. And I know we probably should have talked about Vaughn last week, but I totally overlooked it because
Yeah, me too.
the Bills really came out of nowhere for Vaughn. Like they literally came out of nowhere. I had no idea. I had no sort of inkling. Usually I could kind of like start seeing like, oh yeah, well maybe this little sleeper team will come after him. I literally thought it was between the Rams and the Broncos because especially after the Russell Wilson news happened.
Yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, like now Vaughn's pretty much choosing between the AFC and the NFC in regards to which Super Bowl contender he wants to go and try to ride with.
right.
Um, Vaughn said, "Psych, I'm gonna go to the Bills." And then also, how do we feel about this money though? Like, what is what's Buffalo thinking in regards to the 6-year 120?
Yeah,
It's a lot of money for, and don't get me wrong, Vaughn's a Hall of Famer. He is the GOAT of pass rushers here in Denver. Um, but yeah, I think that's a lot of money for an older guy.
absolutely, it is. It's a heck of a contract for a guy who I believe is turning 32 this year, and that was an instant indicator of, or to me, when that happened, as to why the Broncos didn't end up signing him, is because clearly Vaughn was. I mean, obviously he's on a contender, and so it's hard to say his only intention was to get paid as much as possible, but considering what kind of contract that is for his age, it was very clear he was seeking a bag, and he got a bag. But the Broncos were not going to be able to give him that large of a bag or anywhere near it, realistically speaking, without neglecting some other needs on the roster and probably not picking up a lot of the players that we have already picked up on in free agency here, just due to lack of cap space at that point. So that's when you see Randy Gregory earning, I believe, closer to like 13, 14 million a year. And you're like, okay, I see why he didn't go back. So it softens the sting as a Broncos fan maybe a little bit there. And I'm just glad to see him get his money. But yeah, like you said, it's a questionable contract by the Bills. But if it means you get Von Miller, even if it's just for a year to go win the Super Bowl, in the end, does it matter?
Yeah. Plus, shout out Josh Allen because I just read
True.
an article with Vaughn saying a big reason why he decided to go up there was because of Josh Allen, and shout out
Yeah.
Josh Allen because he went to the University of Wyoming. So
Yeah.
gotta shout out my second home in Wyoming there.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, no, he has shown himself to be one of the elite quarterbacks in this league now. The instant thing you point to is that Chiefs game, and the way that he and Patrick Mahomes traded blows. Right then, you could tell before that, but for me, that was his coming out party of saying, "I'm not
Oh
just really good. I'm
yeah,
Patrick Mahomes good."
yeah. Nationally, that was his coming out party nationally. Like because you're right, we've seen him be really good. We've seen him, and if you watch football, you know about Josh Allen for sure.
Right.
But when you have all the lights on you and it's to go forward, yeah, he really did his thing. And if only he had one more shot. If only
I
he had one more
know.
shot.
Well, they're talking about that with the rule changes. I think that's going on this week right now. Is that might get some? We might get some new overtime rules and potentially, one more chance for a team like the Bills to get a chance in overtime. So some other moves here. A big one: Allen Robinson signing with the Rams on a 3-year,
Huge,
$46.5 million deal with
huge,
30.7 guaranteed. Yeah, like you said, huge. And
huge.
well, what are your thoughts on that?
This to me, this might be the best free agency move. Like
Yeah,
straight up. Allen Robinson has been criminally underrated his whole
yeah,
career, and even more so, like he's been a number one receiver to a bunch of terrible quarterbacks. And
Yeah,
I don't want to say terrible quarterbacks because I'm definitely not an NFL quarterback. But these guys, comparison to who he's playing with now, terrible quarterbacks, terrible
right.
quarterbacks. And I didn't think the Rams were going to be able to do something like this, dude. They just won the bowl. They just lost Von Miller. Like I thought it was going to be OBJ coming back. Just kind of pick up the pieces again, kind of like we've seen Super Bowl contenders do before. Just let's go get our own guys back. That's what Tampa Bay did last year. Get our own guys back, and let's just rerun the same roster pretty much. Minus a few hit and miss guys every year, but no, the Rams said, no, we're going to go straight up and go get another number one receiver to go with the best receiver in the NFL. I mean, like, I guess physically wise and everything else, I got to go with Devontae. But then
Right.
how do you not say Cooper Kupp's not the best wide receiver in the NFL when he
Yeah.
literally was the best wide receiver last year? So,
Yeah. They're neck and neck for sure.
exactly. And so you have Allen Robinson lining up on the other side of that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it's really unfair how in the NFL the rich get richer, but the
Yeah.
Rams, they knocked this one out of the park. They knocked this one out of the park. And Allen Robinson finally gets to go play with a good quarterback, finally gets a place to call home for a little bit. I know he was in Chicago for a little while, but now he can go to LA. It's the same thing as Devontae. Now you go to LA, like you're with the stars, you're playing in that new field, you guys just won a bowl, all the hype's around you, you guys own LA now. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And now you're a big part of that offense. So yeah, I expect huge things from Allen Robinson. I'm so glad he got the bag. So glad he's playing with Stafford now. Yeah, good for everybody.
I agree. Yeah, same here. And like you said, he is going to be a huge part of that offense, partially because they also traded Robert Woods to the Tennessee Titans for a 2023 sixth round pick. And, when you look at that Rams wide receiver room, obviously you're not complaining about Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson sitting there, but having Robert Woods in that locker room, I felt like still would have been a really solid number three. And you see the injuries that they went through last year, not only losing Robert Woods during the season and having OBJ step up, but then losing OBJ in the Super Bowl and taking an
Right.
offensive hit there. That'll be interesting to see with them also letting OBJ go, what kind of depth that they have, you know what I mean, and shows up, and what happens if an Allen Robinson or a Cooper Kupp, God forbid, gets injured, you know what I mean? So that'll be interesting to see. But again, hard to complain about Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson being your number one and your number two.
Yeah, I do agree. I thought I almost like get flashbacks to the Yannick Ngakoue move with the Raiders. Like when you have Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods, like whoa, that's really really nice. Like let's just
Yeah,
hang on to that. But now you just got the two. It's still really nice, but that third option's always nice. And I like if you could have got away with it, because it's not like they've signed anyone else. It's not like they've made any more big moves. So like if you could have gotten away with keeping Robert Woods, why not keep Robert Woods? Like you got a 6th round pick for him. Like why not? Why like I could see if the Titans offered a 3rd round pick or even a 4th, you got a 6th round pick for Robert Woods.
yeah,
Why not just hang on to him? Like why not just hang on to him? It just that one's a little scratchy for me, but I mean, and contrary to like the other two guys, Devontae and Allen, yeah, poor Robert Woods has got to go play with Ryan Tannehill now. Like, Ryan Tannehill was in the AFC East for a long time, and I know he revamped his career down there in Tennessee, but didn't revamp it that much.
yeah. No, for sure. And then so some other big moves here. Bengals making big moves to shore up the line so that Joe Burrow doesn't die in the next couple of years here. Signing Lael Collins to a $3 million, or I'm sorry, 3-year, $30 million contract. And to be honest with you, it's a lot less than I thought he was going to sign for. $10 million
Me
a
too.
year for a really solid tackle.
Me
That's a
too.
good value for the Bengals, along with some of the other offensive linemen that they signed, Alex Kappa, and then one other guy, unfortunately, I'm forgetting the name of, but definitely now trying to fortify that line that got Joe Burrow eaten up at the Super Bowl last year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love it. This is all they needed to do. This is all they needed to do. Go and fix that offensive line. Don't get my
Yeah,
boy killed no more.
exactly.
Just go fix it, guys. And they've done it. And exactly, I agree. I thought Collins was going to take a lot more money, especially because the Cowboys kind of like suddenly released him.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot more money for sure. I thought he was going to be signing somewhere closer to the Armstead deal, maybe just a bit more, a bit less than the Armstead deal, but I thought it was going to be a 5-year, 60 mil deal. So the fact that the Bengals got him, and even more so, I heard he texted Joe Burrow right away and said, "Yo, your new bodyguard's in town. Ain't no one touching you." Like that's the mentality that the Bengals and Joe Burrow already have on some of their free agents, and I love it. I love the Bengals.
yeah, yeah.
If I wasn't a Jets fan, I swear I'd probably be a Bengals fan right now.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly a fun time to be a Bengals fan, and they got a bright future ahead of them after already showing up to a Super Bowl last year. So that'll be a team to watch for sure. So another big trade, one that not everybody necessarily saw coming, maybe eventually, but not as quick as it folded out. Matt Ryan traded over to the Colts for a third-round pick, and that results in the Falcons taking on a $40.5 million dead cap hit this next upcoming
Oof.
year, which is the largest in NFL history. So Falcons finally moving on from Matt Ryan, but you got to wonder how much of that was because of them talking or in so far into talks with Deshaun Watson and then losing out on him. Kind of the situation people were talking about initially with the Browns, how Baker's like WTF when they're talking to Deshaun, and then we thought they were out on it. They ended up getting him, and now the Falcons are in that situation where Matt Ryan, you know, probably their most successful. Well, yeah, he brought them to a Super Bowl, so their most successful franchise quarterback of all time, even over Michael
Yeah.
Vick.
Oh
And
yeah.
the
For
way he
sure.
went out is certainly a little bit cringeworthy, I'm sure, for Falcons fans after him doing so many good things for that franchise. But onto a new start with the Colts and onto a really talented roster that has just been waiting for above average quarterback play since Andrew Luck retired suddenly. And all of a sudden, the Colts are a real contender.
Yeah, I think this is huge. I didn't see this coming literally at all. I don't know why I didn't see this coming. I thought the Colts were thinking more so like personally, I thought Baker.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be Baker, or even I don't know, like a Marcus Mariota, like just a guy to get him through the year, and then let's go see if we can draft somebody and hand the keys to a rookie and see if he could drive the Ferrari. But
Right.
no, they killed this. And I mean, yeah, this is a Atlanta Falcons thing. They just I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. They just literally do not care. Like I don't know how you can treat this is the John Elway of your franchise, pretty much. This is the most important quarterback you guys have ever had, and you guys just let him go out like that. Let him go out thinking that he's going to be replaced by Deshaun Watson, who
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of outside things going on with Deshaun Watson, so I could understand why someone would get offended, even not even for their job, but I could see why someone would get offended about um, being replaced by Deshaun Watson. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think all in all, good for Matt, good for his family, definitely good for the Colts because yeah, I think they're going to take off. It's really, really hard. Like the AFC in general is bonkers. It is like you said, it's a bloodbath. It is nuts out there in the AFC right now, especially with this move. I don't know. I mean, they got Darius Leonard, defensive MVP or defensive player of the year candidate. You got, Quentin Nelson on the offensive line. Tell me Matt Ryan's not going to love that offensive line. Matt Ryan is going to have so much. Matt Ryan might be the MVP next year, dude. Like
Could be.
I'm not even trying to sound crazy right now, but if they're able to maybe draft a wide receiver, um, get him someone else to throw the ball to, maybe Julio comes. I don't know. Still a free agent.
Maybe,
Maybe I'm just saying. Maybe I'm
maybe.
just saying. Maybe I'm just saying. Matt Ryan's gonna look pretty nice in that blue and white next year.
I think so too. I think so too. And so for the Falcons, to replace Matt Ryan this upcoming season, you actually mentioned I'm talking about the Colts. Marcus Mariota signs to the Falcons for a 2-year, $18.75 million deal. And this is a prove it deal for him, just like Mitchell Trubisky over in or with the Steelers now. This is a deal for him to come in and show everybody whether the talent that got him drafted in the first round in 2017 is still worth it or not. You know,
Second overall. Second
second
overall.
overall, it's
Second
crazy.
overall.
And Marcus Mariota has not been the worst quarterback in the world. He's got a lot of physical gifts, and he's made plays. He's taken teams to the playoffs. And I think he won against the Chiefs. I think it was pre-Mahomes, Alex Smith, I want to say 2017 or 2018. He won that game, but flamed out with the Titans, went over to the Raiders for a couple years, and now getting a chance with the Falcons to prove himself and see if he can be a starting quarterback in the league or if he's going to fade out. And then, interestingly, a fellow 2017 first round draftee, Jameis Winston, resigns with the Saints on a 2-year, $28 million, $21 million guaranteed deal. And that's another prove it deal for him. Saints were also in on Deshaun Watson. They didn't get him. They fall back to Jameis Winston, but that's not the worst fallback option. Jameis Winston has shown, I think he had that 30 touchdown, 30 interception year where he threw 5,000 yards. And it's like, if you can just clean up those interceptions, even get it to like 30 touchdowns to 15, get that 2-to-1 ratio, like that's acceptable quarterback play. You know what I mean? And that could get a team somewhere if they're stacked enough, like the Saints roster still is post Drew Brees. So it'll be interesting to see if he can stay healthy for a season and lead the Saints anywhere with their new head coach as well.
It's so weird to me about the Mariota and Winston thing is Winston went number 1 overall that year. Mariota went second overall. And now they're both in the South, and they're both flamed out from their first team, and they're both getting the opportunity to become the franchise quarterback of division rivals. Like, I
so
think
funny.
it's very strange to me. And even more so, Mariota's going to wear the number 1 with the Falcons, and obviously Jameis is going to wear the number 2 with. I don't know. It's just they have so many weird parallels, even more so than normal 1 and 2 overall picks do. But anyways, yes, I like the Mariota move a lot more than I like Winston, because I like Mariota more than I like Winston. And yeah, I also I'm kind of sad that Mariota shaved his beard, because I thought he had this real cool rugged look to him when he had that beard going. And I saw his pictures that the Falcons posted on Instagram, and I was like, dang, my boy shaved his beard. He doesn't look like a 300 soldier anymore.
Exactly. That is exactly what he looked like. Now, it was perfect being on the Raiders, though. You got to have that rugged look, and it's a new start like going to the Falcons. Got to shave off the beard. I'm sure it'll grow back, though. But so a couple more moves here to shore up the offensive line with Tyreek Hill there now. Miami Dolphins went and signed Teron Armstead to a 5-year, $75 million deal. Pretty big move for them there. That definitely helps Tua out. Although, an interesting note, Teron Armstead is a left tackle, and the Dolphins are still looking for a right tackle. And normally on an NFL team, that would be an advantageous situation because the left tackle covers the quarterback's blind spot. However, Tua throws left-handed. So their priority really should have been the right tackle
Right
rather
tackle.
than left
Yeah.
tackle. But you're never going to complain about having Teron Armstead on your left side. So good move from them for sure.
Who's their current left tackle?
Their current left tackle, like previous to
Yeah,
Teron Armstead,
yeah.
I would have to look it up. Hold on.
Oh, don't worry about it then. Because I was just gonna say, if anything, can we not just plop that other guy over there? Just make it real easy. Because I know if you're Armstead, yeah, you probably just want to be on the left side, and if I'm the Dolphins, I'd probably want to stick him on the left side. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess that's the Dolphins' problem, huh?
right. Yeah, no, from the Dolphins' perspective, I would certainly not want to pay a left tackle all that money and then try to switch him over to the right side. Although, with that said, I'm not sure about Teron Armstead or the Miami Dolphins' previous tackles and whether they have good, yeah, like experience with being on the opposite side. Because it is possible to switch those players over, but it's not necessarily a plug and play thing, So
Right, right,
you
right, right.
always wonder about that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. And Miami Dolphins certainly not worse off to have him, but could definitely use a right tackle as well to protect Tua. And then a very fun story: Malcolm Butler signing back with the Patriots on a 2-year deal worth $9 million, or worth up to $9 million. And this is after coming off a year where he signed with the Cardinals, but then ended up retiring. And then the Cardinals allowed him to, or freed up his rights so that he could go sign with whoever he wanted to, and ended up with the Patriots again.
That sounds exactly like a Patriots thing.
Yeah,
It sounds shisty and shady. So yeah, it sounds perfect
it's
to match with
sounds
the New
about right.
England Patriots. Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, and you always remember that Malcolm Butler interception of Russell Wilson to end that Super Bowl, and crazy play. Crazy that he's back with the Patriots now after spending a few years with the Titans and lighting it up there, and that'll be fun to see. And then Miles Jack, after leaving the Jacksonville Jaguars, signs with the Steelers on a 2-year, $16 million deal. Definitely a good signing there for them. That makes that inside linebacker room at the Steelers very strong, and that
Oh yeah.
defense that was already strong even stronger.
Oh yeah. I love Miles Jack. I love him going to Pittsburgh. I loved Miles Jack since he came back since he came out of college. So the fact that yeah, he's up there playing with Devin Bush, I love it. Pittsburgh's defense is undeniably great. Like undeniably great. They just have studs back there. And I think Miles Jack is another high energy guy that the city of Pittsburgh is going to fall in love with. And I mean, the AFC is crazy. If they could just figure out their quarterback, because I don't think Mitch is the answer for sure, they would be dangerous. They would be dangerous.
For sure. Yeah, and yeah, we'll have to see about that quarterback situation. But if they can, I mean, they're kind of like in the situation that the Broncos have been in the last few years, is you have a roster that can potentially compete if you can just get, average to a little bit above average quarterback play, and maybe it can carry itself there.
Right.
So Steelers a team to watch in the AFC for sure. A lot of teams to watch in the AFC, but and then let's move on to rather than some players that have been signed, some players that haven't been signed yet, and then what teams that we think maybe they'll land on, or what teams would be best for them. So I want to get your opinion on my first player here, Bobby Wagner. What do you think about him?
Um, super solid linebacker for the Seahawks forever, and just a leader on that defense. I really do think probably the best spot for him, in my opinion, is to go west and go try to re-up, or go try to link up with the LA Rams. And I just think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think you get a nice NFC West matchup. You get the revenge game twice a year against the Seahawks. I think Bobby Wagner is one of those guys that wants to go in there and show him that he can still play. So I think
Yeah.
that would be a nice matchup to see twice a year. I also think they just have a void there, right there in the middle. And I know that, like the Broncos and like a few other teams that just constantly are going through middle linebackers, and it feels like the Rams have a knack for finding these veterans and giving them a home the last few years. They did that with Eric Weddle. I
Yeah,
mean, they got Vaughn another ring. You know, they just kind of have a knack for grabbing these veterans and giving them a place to call home the last few years of their career. And however been able to do it, they keep getting guys that still have loads of talent in them. So it's not like they're getting these washed up guys. Maybe like an Adama Sue where he kind of is showing flashes, but is not, good for the majority of the time. Um,
right.
but I think Bobby Wagner still has a lot to give, and I think LA would be a perfect spot for him. What are you thinking as far as B Wags?
Yeah, no, I was thinking pretty much the same thing. I love the Rams fit, but there's another team as well that he can always go to is the Cowboys. There's always that connection with Dan Quinn, who was the defensive coordinator
Oh,
with the Legion of Boom over in Seattle.
yep.
So I do think I agree with you that the Rams right now are a better fit for him. I think, like you said, the Rams have a recent past of finding those it feels weird to say diamonds in the rough when you're talking about a basically Hall of Fame level caliber player.
Right.
But almost diamond in the rough in terms of people are writing him off because he's a little bit older in his career, doesn't appear to have as much left in him. But if you can maximize him for a Super Bowl run, he can be a huge part of that. And not only as a player, but Bobby Wagner is a leader too in that defensive room. And losing Von Miller, who it sounds like was a very large voice during that LA Rams Super Bowl run last year in that locker room and talking to a lot of the young guys and having that experience of having won a Super Bowl. I think that would be a valuable addition for the Rams for sure. So let's see our next player here coming from the Rams in free agency. We're looking at Odell Beckham Jr.
Um, I mean, I think personally, I think OBJ should just re-up with the Rams, unless um, another Super Bowl contender wants to sign you. I think if you're OBJ, you just re-up with the Rams. I think there's a need. Obviously, we talked about a little bit earlier with the Allen Robinson signing. There's a need for some depth there in the wide receiver room. Those
Yeah,
guys don't have any draft picks, so they're not going to be drafting depth anytime soon. Um, so yeah, if I'm OBJ, I'd call Sean McVay right back up and say, "Yo, let's get it done." Plus, I just tore my ACL for you. You guys owe me that.
right, right. No, I agree with you. And yeah, the Rams seemed like the most likely spot. You thought it was possible coming into like after he comes to the Rams, even before the Super Bowl, and you're looking forward into free agency. You always thought that was a possibility, considering they had just traded for him. Um, but at the same time, the Rams only have so much cap space. Where do you want to put that? But with his injury during the Super Bowl, his market is most likely lower than it probably would have been otherwise. And so I
Right.
think that just adds on to it of why he's most likely going to go back there, probably work out a little bit cheaper of a deal than they were initially thinking for him, and then come in and maybe go for another Super Bowl with the Rams. To throw one in there just to, why not? Uh, do you wonder about Jarvis Landry also being a free agent and where he goes and whether that might be back to the Browns? And because Baker Mayfield is no longer the starting quarterback, if Odell would be interested at all in returning?
I was actually going to say the same thing. Like the minute you were done with Odell, I was gonna be like, maybe the Browns take him back too. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that it's all up to OBJ. I think personally, if I'm OBJ, I think I'm a better fit in LA. Like his personality, everything about him fits in LA.
Yeah,
And if I'm being honest with you, I think the same thing about Jarvis Landry, but in Cleveland. I think
Yeah,
that Jarvis Landry is a perfect fit for Cleveland. I think he's a blue collar, head in the head in your work type of guy. So I almost want to say like I would love for OBJ to go team up with Deshaun Watson because I love Deshaun Watson as a player, but I kind of just want Jarvis to just go re-up with Cleveland and OBJ just re-up with LA, and they just call each other on the phone. Like
yeah,
I don't think we got to do it anymore.
that's fair. Yeah, I guess at least they got it for a year or two. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but you know,
Yeah, if you're a Browns fan, you still got the Odell jersey. You know what I mean? Like you can still say
right.
that Odell Beckham played for your team.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. All right. Our next player here, let's talk about Stephon Gilmore. Where do you think he's going to go?
I think, I think Stephon Gilmore probably should. Well, it's not really on him, right? I would probably say that the Bengals just need to give him a call, kind of wrap that up.
Right.
I would imagine that's probably where you're feeling that too, right? Number
Yeah.
one corner still left out there. Obviously, Eli Apple can't get it done, so
Well, and like you said, other than the Bengals offensive line, their biggest weakness during that Super Bowl and what got exposed the most was their corners and very much Eli Apple in the biggest moment. And so I would think that's a need. I do think that it would be possible for them to uh, certainly try and draft, maybe wait for some sort of midseason trade. Like I don't think that would be awful in terms of like a bigger star or whatever. Um,
right,
if they wanted to wait, like I don't think it's a need that it's like they're not going to make it back to the Super Bowl if they don't get somebody. You know what I mean? But I do
right,
think that if you can upgrade that position, which Stephon Gilmore would be an upgrade, very much so over Eli Apple, you should probably do it if you have the space for it. If you're that close to the Super Bowl and you've already made your moves on the offensive line, um, I think that's an all-in type of move if you're trying to win the Super Bowl next year. Um,
and
but
and it's not like he's going to make your team worse. You know what I mean? He's not
right.
going to make your team worse.
Yeah, yeah, and it's you can always make the argument like you want to keep that cap space open for maybe a couple less expensive players, but given the like we just talked about in the Super Bowl, what your biggest weaknesses were and what was exposed the most, that it just makes too much sense. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's definitely a surprising one that hasn't already happened.
right, yeah, we'll see if it happens in the next week here, but and then so next one, Julio Jones.
So my man Julio, I think, is in the spot in his career where honestly, I just think he should go to any contender that has enough cap space.
Yeah,
If you are a contender and you have enough cap space to go get Julio Jones, just sign him. Just sign him. Um, Green Bay, Tampa, Kansas City,
yeah.
the Colts. I mean, any of them. The Browns, any of them. Um, I just want Julio to go somewhere where I know that he. I mean, I'm not saying. Well, he had some injury problems down in Tennessee, and that's super unfortunate because I really did like that matchup. Honestly, I would even say go back to Tennessee for another year.
Yeah,
But my problem is Ryan Tannehill. I think if you're Julio Jones, you're like, man, I'm good on Ryan Tannehill.
yeah.
So yeah, truly for me with Julio, just any contender with some cap space.
No, I agree with you there. I would say he's, like you said, almost like an Odell to the Rams. I think he's a piece that could put a already competing team over the edge, to really get into that Super Bowl territory, and then maybe serve as some depth if somebody bigger than him gets injured, and hopefully he isn't the one getting injured again. But
Right.
the thought of him with Kansas City and getting thrown to by Patrick Mahomes is cringeworthy as a Broncos fan. I will say that much. But yeah, that's an interesting one to see for sure. While I wouldn't say it makes like the most sense realistically, the one place that I really, really want him to go, and that you kind of brought up a little bit earlier, talking about the Yannick Ngakoue trade, is the Colts. And now that Matt Ryan is there, maybe going back and reuniting with his old buddy and one more year, one more chance at a Super Bowl, maybe on a different team.
I love that. I love that fit. I really do. I think that's what Matty Ice needs is another wide receiver, honestly. And I mean, if you get 70% of what Julio Jones was, still pretty fucking good. Still
Yeah,
pretty good.
I agree. I agree. All right. Our next guy here from the Denver Broncos, Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon. Honestly, I would like to see him. I'd like to see him come to New York with the Jets. And that's only because I like the 1-2 punch that he had with Javonte Williams. And obviously with Michael Carter and Javonte both coming out of North Carolina, they both have a slightly similar running style. I think Javonte runs with much more violence than
Yeah,
Michael Carter does. I think Michael Carter's a bit more shifty than Javonte is. But I think Melvin Gordon would add a perfect compliment to him. And Melvin Gordon's getting up there in years, and even more so now he's starting to take this persona of being a little fumble prone. So I'm hoping that he's willing to come to a team that maybe is not going to be contending, but is willing to give him a shot. And I think he could have a huge impact on the Jets. I really, really do.
I agree. I agree. I think the Jets would for sure be a good spot for him. And I do think that part of the reason that he wanted to leave the Broncos was because we just weren't going to pay him the amount that he wants. And for the production that he does have, and given the fact you think about running backs, how short their careers are, Melvin Gordon already has a long running back career. I
Yeah.
think he's at like 6 or 7 years in the league now. That's
Mm-hmm.
above average. And so for him, it seems like he's looking to, you know, understand that and make as much money as he can within, but he still wants to compete. And that's what I love about Melvin Gordon when he was here is he's definitely a passionate guy and he wants to win. But you can see the perspective of not necessarily being all about the money, but making sure that he's valued in a league that doesn't value running backs. And I do think that the Jets have the space that they could facilitate that. And he's not looking for absurd money either. I think he made like 7 million a year with us over the last 2 years. And
Right.
if you guys signed him for that, maybe a little bit more even, I don't think that would be offensive. My personal pick for Melvin Gordon, though, would be the Bills. And I think that would be a move that would just push them over in terms of offensive, like their biggest weakness. Everything else, Josh Allen can take care of. He even rushes on the ground and he takes care of
Yeah.
that. But the one thing
Yeah.
he can't have any control over is after he hands the ball off. You know what I mean? And Devin
Right.
Singletary has just not been enough for a competing team to make it to the Super Bowl. But I do think a 1-2 punch between Devin Singletary and Melvin Gordon is a different story. And Melvin Gordon
Ooh.
brings that physicality and that just beast back running that, Devin Singletary doesn't and would be a boon for that offense and a boon for Josh Allen to not have as much on his plate either. And that would be a really, really interesting move for me.
Yeah, I think I think that's a good point. I think that him and Singletary would be nice together. I like that fit with the Bills a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then our next player here, Calais Campbell.
I honestly I think Big Calais, if he doesn't end up going back to the Ravens, is that where he played last year? Did he play with the Ravens last year?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't go back to the Ravens, which is, it's an obvious fit. I mean, got Tampa Bay that might need a defensive tackle. That might do good to have. Calais Campbell's like an ageless wonder. He just does not play old at all. It's
Dude,
like
he's 35. It's crazy.
it's absolutely nuts, dude. I cannot believe it. But yeah, if Tampa wanted to take a flyer on Calais Campbell, I'd be okay with that. Depending on how he felt. But yeah, I would say probably between Tampa and Baltimore. What are you thinking? I know that's your boy.
Yeah, that's my boy. He went to Colorado, and yeah, I want him. I've always wanted him every single time he's been free to come to the Broncos. Not realistic, unfortunately. And it's probably going to be our last opportunity to get him, I would imagine, before he ends up retiring. It's got to be getting close here. I thought it was going to be the last time when he signed with the Ravens, but
Yeah.
here we are. So, but I thought that he would go a little bit earlier in free agency, to be honest with you. But he may end up just being one of those players that either waits until closer to training camp and signs with somebody who's desperate in terms of like for that position, probably a contender that just feels like that they really need some more inside depth there, or a starting inside guy. And if not that, I really think it's pretty likely that he just goes back to the Ravens. Ravens did pick up Michael Pierce, reinforce that inside defensive line a little bit, which, so I don't think that it's necessary that they bring him back, but with the market not being as feasting on him as I thought it would be, then he might be able to get him for a little bit less, and I certainly would not complain.
Right.
And then, so for our final player of the day, we're going to talk about Jadeveon Clowney.
All right. So Clowney's always, every time he's up, like in terms of free agency, it's kind of the same narrative with him, right?
Yeah.
He didn't do enough to get signed in that first wave, but he did enough to get signed, to a decent contract with somebody. I think he had 9 sacks last year with the Browns, but if I'm being honest with you, when he got teamed up with Myles Garrett, I thought it was going to be game over. I thought it was going to be donezo. I thought we were finally going to see the potential that Jadeveon Clowney had when he got drafted, and also some of that potential that we saw in Houston some of those years.
Yeah.
But it unfortunately did not happen as much. He was a bit more up and down than I would have liked. So, I mean, personally, probably Cleveland again, right? Like, why not Cleveland again? Otherwise, it's probably going to be just some random team that, I think he'll probably get signed after the draft, because that's when teams are going to know kind of where they are as far as their roster makeup, to see if they need another edge guy. But yeah, I'd probably say Cleveland again, because I don't know who they have on the other side of Myles Garrett besides Clowney. So
Right. Yeah, and their options are drying up to replace him.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, if the Browns don't draft somebody, I would say that, yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome too. And I echo everything you were talking about. I think he's similar to Calais Campbell in the sense that he may be one of those guys that waits until almost up till training camp to sign with somebody. When they get into training camp or get into some of those rookie mini camps and kind of get a feeling for some of the guys that they have around, and then the coaching staff realizes, okay, we don't have enough here on the edge, we need to add. And then you have Jadeveon Clowney sitting there. One of those teams is going to give him enough dollars eventually that he'll sign. And that's kind of the way it's been with him. I think, because unless I'm forgetting one of the times that he's been in free agency, I feel like it's been twice, going from the Texans to Seattle and then from Seattle to the Browns. And both times he waited.
He went to Tennessee in between.
Oh, he did go to Tennessee. You're right. So it's been 3 times.
Tennessee in between that. Yeah, he went to Tennessee in between that.
Totally forgot about that. And it kind of goes to show how much he's been almost not forgettable, but just not the impact player that his name has been made out to be, it seems, at points. Well, because of the potential, but it's just never manifested in the way that we expected. So, but
Yeah,
it'll
exactly.
be interesting to see what happens with him for sure. So I suppose we can move on to a little bit more specific content on our teams. How about the Jets this week?
All right. So, I mean, Jets haven't did too much since we talked last week. We did sign Greg Zuerlein, which I love. Love Greg the Leg. He's going to
Yeah,
come in and compete against our current kicker, Eddie Pinero. Eddie came in. We had the worst kicking luck last year. Like, I watched every single Jets game last year. Every single Jets game had kicking problems
man.
until we got Eddie Pinero. So I will say that I do think that it's going to be a nice competition. I think the Jets should probably look into investing one of those draft picks into the kicker because I'm okay with drafting a kicker if we're going to get like an Evan McPherson type of kicker. If we're going to get like
Right.
one of these kickers that we're going to have for 12 years and he's just going to be lights out. But so we signed him. And then as far as the Jets go, I think what we're really trying to do is we're trying to get ready for the draft, right? So we're doing tons of due diligence on the draft. And I won't go too hard because I know we're going to do some draft coverage coming up. But I mean, I think the biggest things that we're looking at right now, obviously, when we were trying to trade for Tyreek Hill, that's going to show that, hey, Joe Douglas, one, is okay with being aggressive and trying to help Zach Wilson, which I love to see. I've also heard some connections between the Jets and AJ Brown for whatever reason from the Tennessee Titans. I don't know if it's just something's in the air or Devontae Adams really has got these wide receivers trying to get paid. But there's been a few leaks and rumors that AJ Brown might be available. I know that Joe Douglas already reached out to Seattle to inquire the status of DK Metcalf.
Oof.
I'm not sure if yeah, I know. I'm not sure if he inquired about the status of Tyler Lockett. I think that would probably be probably not the case, just looking at Lockett's age and the contract he's already on. Um, but yeah, I think the or the inquiry about DK Metcalf was met with a no-go. I think Seattle was hanging on to DK. But the AJ Brown thing has been a relatively a weird little saga because AJ Brown actually had tweeted something about it being in God's hands now. It's out of his hands. There's the obvious connection with Corey Davis, who was his teammate down in Tennessee, and Elijah Moore, who was his college teammate. And
Mm.
I've seen interviews between AJ Brown and Elijah Moore, and AJ Brown credits Elijah Moore to for so much stuff. One, AJ Brown has had some mental health issues before, and he credits Elijah Moore hugely on that. He really considers Elijah Moore as a very close personal friend, almost like a brother. So that's definitely something to look out for, especially if Joe Douglas is willing to be aggressive to try to get Zach Wilson a weapon, which I love.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would just look to the Jets, especially as we round out free agency, head into the draft, to start looking at some edge rushers, whether that's going to be someone we need to develop or draft and develop, or someone we can still go and sign on the free agency market, which it's starting to look really scarce. It really, really is. And then, yeah, I mean, we've done some pre-draft visits. One of those was to Traylon Burks, the wide receiver from Arkansas, which is really huge. He's a big physical playmaker. And he's one of the other guys that I'm really looking for the Jets to take, besides Drake London or Garrett Wilson, coming out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just kind of leading up to the draft here. We're just kind of zoning in. I was looking at some of the tape on some of these wide receivers coming into the draft, and Let me tell you, dude, I'm super excited for a lot of these wide receivers to get into the NFL because they all have their own little bit of razzle dazzle.
Yeah,
Um, I think Drake London, in my opinion, is going to be one of the ones that the Jets are looking between him and Traylon Burks. I think those are going to be the two that the Jets are really looking at. I think the biggest difference between where the Jets go in regards to their two first round picks are going to be kind of how the board plays out, especially with all these trades and everything that's been happening. Because before at 9, we had the Broncos in front of us. Now who do we have Seattle in front of us now? You know,
I
so
believe so.
so yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if the Jets are willing to trade out. What Seattle's going to end up doing, if someone's going to jump in front of the Jets because Seattle's willing to come back and maybe get a quarterback in the second half of the first round. Yeah, there's just a lot of very interesting things that are going to play when it comes to draft time. I think the other thing that, as far as the Jets go, that we need to really take a look at, if we could, especially while we're kind of going through the second phase of free agency, is maybe a weak side linebacker. Because
Yeah,
we have Quincy Williams, who's Quentin's brother, and they play. I love seeing the Williams brothers play together. One, they play off of each other's energy. I love to see it. I love to see two brothers playing and get to work together.
yeah,
Um, and and then we obviously have the man C.J. Mosley, man in the middle. And C.J. Mosley had. I'm not sure about his stats with the Ravens, but boy balled out for the Jets this year. Boy balled
yeah.
out for the Jets this year.
He's nice.
I want to say he had a career year for the Jets. And so yeah, if we can get a weak side linebacker to play alongside those two guys that fits in that Robert Saleh type of mold. Um, I know a few years ago we had the opportunity to get Anthony Barr, and I'm not sure Anthony Barr's scheme fit now in the Jet system. But I mean, Anthony Barr could be someone real nice if he decided that he wanted to grace us with his presence, even though no one
Yeah,
signed him anymore, and the
yeah,
Vikings let him go after he chose to go back with the Vikings and not us. But yeah, I mean, if we can get a weak side linebacker, if we could fill that strong safety role, I would feel really comfortable because, like I said, I'm not sure if we're going to address that in the draft or not. I know Hamilton looks real nice,
yeah,
fourth overall, but I'm not sure how reliant Robert Saleh's defense is on a safety in that regard. And so to use such a high draft pick on Kyle might not be something he's looking to do. But I have heard that he is a unicorn type of player, so
yeah.
still might be something that we're interested in. But otherwise, yeah, man, we've been pretty quiet this week. Besides trying to go trade for old Cheetah over there and him kicking us to the curb to go to Miami.
So I do want to get your thoughts on that as a Jeff fan in a moment here. But before that, I do want to touch on what some of the things you said there, and the AJ Brown rumors. That's crazy. That would be a game changing move if you can get AJ Brown and CJ Uzoma on that offense in the same offseason. That's
That's
huge, giving Zach Wilson some huge weapons, like serious weapons to actually uh, start to compete and start to win games, and that would be huge for his development. I feel like as well. That would be really interesting. And then, you know, outside linebacker wise, I think Anthony Barr would be interesting. He's one of those guys, like you said, he's kind of getting to the wonder years of his career now. He is still effective, but he's seems to be looking for a little bit more money than people want to really pay him. But that is certainly a position of great wealth in this draft that you guys could probably get depth wise. And I would probably look for you guys to go there, as well as in safety. honestly, I love the idea of Kyle Hamilton at number 4. He totally is one of those unicorn type players. He would be a leader of that defense, um, total game changer. And I think if you don't go wide receiver in the first round, I think that like that would be the pick for me at least. But I do want to hear your thoughts on Tyreek Hill. You know, obviously there was the pursuing. Unfortunately, you guys didn't get him. Went over to Miami, and now he's in your division. You got to face him two times a year. So, I think that also kind of lends into the Kyle Hamilton conversation, where you say, is that maybe a pick that suddenly gains more value because you have Tyreek Hill in the division that or your safeties can have to focus on 2 times a year.
So initially, and I mean, me and you were texting back and forth on it right away. Like
Yeah.
right away, the minute the news broke that something might be happening, me and you were already on it texting each other.
Yeah.
Um, Initially, I was okay with it. I'm still 50-50 on it because um, obviously Tyreek Hill has had some off the field stuff that I don't like to associate with, and I don't like the New York Jets to associate themselves with. But he's a crazy dominant player. So it would have been nice to get him to come and help Zach Wilson out and help the development of Zach Wilson. So I'm a little bummed out in regards to that, but I'm okay with it because if I'm being honest with you, I do think it's Mike Wallace 2.0. I think it's Mike
Right.
Wallace 2.0. And I know I've said that to you, and I've said that to some other people in private. I really do like this. Just feels like Mike Wallace. It just feels
Yeah.
like Mike Wallace. The reason why he left is because he wanted Devontae money, and the Chiefs didn't want to give him Devontae money. Mike Wallace wanted a new deal with Pittsburgh and left, and Mike Wallace runs really fast.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill runs really fast, and now they both went to Miami. Like it feels like Mike Wallace 2.0. And
Yeah.
another thing that me and you had talked about in private as well was, Keenan Allen was bringing up that some people are going to be exposed in this trade now.
Yeah.
And I don't think Keenan was talking about Patrick or Travis or anyone on the Kansas City Chiefs, because there's just no way. Like Patrick Mahomes is where Patrick Mahomes is, and Travis Kelce is the best tight end in football. Like, so I
Yeah.
don't think those guys are going to be getting exposed. I think who's going to be getting exposed is Tyreek Hill, and I'm not no shade to Tua whatsoever. My opinion is still not decided on Tua. I hope Tua does really good because um, I have a love for the University of Alabama now, so I have to root for the University of Alabama as much as I
Oh,
can.
oh
I
no.
know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to bring up Bama. I'm sorry. I had to do it to you. So I love me some. I love me them Bama boys. So I want Tua to do really good. But you got Jalen Waddle. I think there's a good chemistry with him there. I really hope that Miami has something cooked up for Tyreek Hill. But I think that it's going to be a significant drop for Tyreek Hill. I think he'll probably one of those two wide receivers in Miami is going to go over 1,000. I can't tell you which one's going to go over 1,000. Both of them will not go over 1,000. Both of them will not go over 1,000.
Yeah.
One of them will be in like the 8 9s, and the other one will be over 1,000. I just can't tell you which one it is. I want to say, I think it's going to be Waddle that's going to go over 1,000 because of the chemistry he already has with Tua.
Right.
But Tyreek can get 200 yards in one game. So
Right.
it's very interesting. But as a Jets fan, I'm cool with it. I'm a little bummed out, but if we were able to get AJ Brown, or I'd still rather not pay Tyreek all that money anyways. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, and plus, we weren't even going to give up a first round pick for him. So that's all the stuff that I found out about the Jets in regards to the talks about the Tyreek Hill trade is stuff I wanted to find out because I got a little bit more in depth in how my general manager's thinking. I saw the trade that the Chiefs accepted for Tyreek Hill, and we weren't even going to. So we were going to have Tyreek Hill, and we were going to pick 4th and 10 in this year's draft. Boy, stop. The Jets were going to win the Super Bowl if that happened. You guys
Right.
couldn't let that happen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like, no, but yeah, that's pretty much it as the Tyreek Hill thing for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. We'll have to see how it plays out with Tyreek Hill. I do think that between the cap space that he would have taken up and everything, and the potential of him, I don't necessarily think that he's going to be awful, but I do think that he's probably going to take a large step back just by nature of not having Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. And we'll have to see to what extent that is, but I feel like it's pretty likely that he's not going to live up to 24-25 million dollars a year with his new production, as opposed to what he was able to put up with potentially one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Patrick Mahomes eventually. um, but yeah, and like you mentioned with the Jets going after him, I saw that too. I can't remember the particular picks that you guys offered, but the fact that there wasn't a first round pick in there, and it was a pretty modest haul in comparison to what was actually traded by Miami, that would have been a really good move. And it shows that the Jets weren't willing to overpay and overextend themselves for a player of Tyreek Hill's nature, and just keep it within the realm of possibility and just not go crazy, because that's how you get into bad situations. If Tyreek Hill ends up going to Miami, doesn't get the production that they expected out of him, and they gave up 5 picks and $25 million a year, they're not going to be super happy with it. So we'll see what happens. But it's definitely an interesting situation. I was interested to hear your side of it as well as a Jets fan. So we will move over to the Broncos. A few different signings going on. I'll kind of rattle these off real quick. Quan Williams from the 49ers signs for 2 years, $7 million. And he's most likely going to be our starting slot cornerback after Bryce Callahan leaves in free agency. Bryce Callahan's still a possibility to come back if he wants to sign a cheap enough deal with us to be depth. He would be a huge steal at that point. But Quan Williams to replace him has had less injury issues and injury past than Callahan has. Solid slot cornerback. He's also very solid in terms of takeaways. He's been one of the top slot cornerbacks in the league in that area. So that'll be really interesting to bring into the locker room, as the Broncos have really been disappointing when it comes to turnovers. And between him and DJ Jones, really Randy Gregory too, are 3 players that we added that have a past of helping the turnover margin turn into the positive, so those are exciting signings for the Denver Broncos for sure.
Absolutely.
Deshaun Williams, defensive tackle, he resigns with us for a year, 1 million or 1.65 million. And originally he was an undrafted free agent out of college. He's been cut 8 different times in his career. And finally in 2020, I believe, was the last time he was cut. He was signed by us and then signed again in 2021, and then now re-signed in 2022.
Yeah.
And yeah, good for him. He is a wonderful dude. He's a super hard worker. And he's that type of player that when he's out there, you can tell that he values every moment, because he understands how precious it is and the opportunity of it, and how rare. So very, very cool re-signing for us. Another guy we signed from the Eagles, Alex Singleton, inside linebacker, and $1.1 million deal. He's a special teams ace, and he's actually led the Eagles twice in tackles. I don't know if it was the last 2 years, but 2 separate years during his career with the Eagles. So interesting signing there.
Right.
Special teams, definitely an area that we needed to focus on in free agency. Very happy to see that. And then a little bit of work on the offensive line, signing Tom Compton from the 49ers on a 1-year deal. Very good run blocker. He filled in at right tackle last year for the 49ers for a bit, was solid enough. Kind of average, maybe a little bit below average in pass protection. So he's not necessarily an answer, but he's a good body to have in there. Also signed Billy Turner on a 1-year deal, and him, Tom Compton, our guy that was already in our room, Calvin Anderson, and then most likely a draft pick somewhere in there are going to be competing for that starting right tackle job. The very nice thing about some of these signings, so Calvin Anderson and Billy Turner are two guys, and really Tom Compton too, but they're guys that have had success playing at different and starting at different parts of the line. Both Billy Turner and Tom Compton have started at guard spots as well as tackle spots. And Calvin Anderson has been our swing tackle here in Denver for the last few years, and really did well filling in for Garrett Bowles on the left side last year for a couple games. And now he's competing for the starting right tackle job. I'm hoping Calvin Anderson can pull it out. But the nice thing is that no matter who is in that spot, we now have 3 guys that can plug into different spots on the line. And when you think about the attrition that goes on in an offensive line room over a year, especially for a team looking to compete for the Super Bowl, I think those are huge moves to make sure that if somebody goes down, our offensive line isn't going to suddenly take a huge step back in productivity. So some really exciting moves. And then one kind of interesting but scary story at the same time. On Thursday, Empower Field and Mile High Stadium caught on fire in part of the seats. And luckily nobody was injured at all. But it sounds like, from what we know now, that there was a fire in a construction area right below some of the seats, and it kind of leaked out. There was a bunch of smoke that you could see from the highway, and people were freaking out a little bit. Luckily didn't get too far, didn't burn up too much, but scary sights for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was from all those Bronco fans smoking that rest pack. That you guys are Thought you guys are just. Thought you guys are just. I thought you guys were just on your game. I was like, we're not even. It's not even preseason yet. Like, you guys can't even be in there yet. Like, Russ is not in the stadium, guys.
Hey, bro, we're just already letting Russ cook. Don't worry about it.
I know. He's cooking. He's catching the stadium on fire.
Yeah. So definitely interesting. Ton of stuff going on in free agency. Very excited to talk about all this today with you, and definitely looking forward to next week. We can talk about some more of the stuff in the draft, and then we also got some UFC coming up too.
Yes, super excited about that. Yeah, this was a good week. Get caught up on the free agency, kind of wrap that up, because there's not going to be too many big signings. I would say the only thing we'd have to look for is maybe a Baker trade or a Baker release. But otherwise, yeah, next week we'll do some pre-draft stuff a little bit, and then we got to talk about that UFC pay-per-view that's coming up. So definitely we'll hit on that next week for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. This has been the Mile High Flight Show, and we'll see you guys next week.
Later.